And I'm glad. I know for myself, I was thinking, gee, if I would have known, I wouldn't have come. And that was how I felt then. But now I have to say, I'm glad I did attend. I am glad for the people I met, for the things I learned, for, I think, the quality panels that we were able to have with the Climate Emergency Forum. I think it was definitely a worthwhile endeavor. And I think was interesting in terms of what's to come for our future. Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, followers of the Climate Emergency Forum. Well, it's good to have you with us here today. And for those of you who've been keeping track of our uploads, you've been no doubt seeing some of our panels that we led and moderated at the most recent COP, that's COP26 in Glasgow. And our show today, COP26 Reflections. We're going to reflect on our experience, what we learned, what it was like, perhaps what we thought. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll just start off with my own thoughts. And let me remind you, if you're not aware, that all of us who are here today that you see in our little boxes, we attended COP25 together as well in Madrid, Spain. And that was a great experience for all of us. I know for me, that was my first time attending a COP. And I think for Charles and Heidi as well. Yes. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience. And I have to say, it was very different. It was very different because, of course, you have to remember that was a pre-pandemic COP. And so there's the inevitable compare and contrast. I don't know if any of you have thoughts, but the whole experience for me was just completely changed with the COVID protocols. And honestly, it changed months before we even arrived. I don't know about you guys, but the uncertainty, is the COP going to happen? Is it not going to happen? The fear of like, oh my gosh, they can't cancel it. This is the one, when you're looking to find love, you're thinking, this is the one, this is going to do it. So the fears, what if it doesn't happen? What if they cancel it? Yeah, that was really quite a lot to deal with. And for me, it really impacted my ability to think of different topics for our panels, think of who we would invite, just because of the great uncertainty. And then, of course, when we found out, yes, they're going to have it, there was a mad rush to find housing, to find tickets. And then I don't know about you all, but my gosh, filling out all of the paperwork just to get to the UK was a tremendous, tremendous burden. And no doubt a lot of you in our audience know about what I'm talking about. Traveling has become really difficult, especially air travel. So that, for me, that was big. And it really, to me, it kind of hampered how much I was able to mix around and meet people and talk and really be a part of it in a way that I experienced in Madrid. And that was really something. And I'm glad. I know for myself, I was thinking, gee, if I would have known, I wouldn't have come. And that was how I felt then. But now I have to say, I'm glad I did attend. I am glad for the people I met, for the things I learned, for, I think, the quality panels that we were able to have with the Climate Emergency Forum. I think it was definitely a worthwhile endeavor. And I think it was interesting in terms of what's to come for our future. I don't think this pandemic's going away. And of course, we all know with climate change that there could be more pandemics in our future. The warmer planet kind of facilitates this type of thing. But what I found really impressive was that despite the challenges, there were a tremendous number of people there. People were very, very interested. The talks were, at least the ones I attended, very robust. And I got a lot out of it. And for me, and maybe, you know, one of you, or maybe I can bring it up later, the thing that I really like to do is to go around the COP and try to interview people who are on the front lines of climate change, but are not on the front lines of these panel discussions, these high level discussions. These are the people who are experiencing the greatest threat from climate change, but seem to have the smallest voice. And some of the people that I was able to interview, they were from this organization. It's called the National Organization of Indigenous Women from the Andes and the Amazons of Peru. And I found their bravery to be quite incredible. I think it's difficult for women. It's difficult for American women to have a voice. I'm American. But I think especially for women who are in the global South, who may have like less human rights, freedoms of expression than we women in the West do. It's a lot harder. And they're really fighting for the land, for their way of life, for the ability to live as they have for many, many generations. And I just found that to be so inspiring. And they're among some of the many people who really kept me going strong. I mean, it was hard for me, but English is my first language. I can only imagine what it was like for them. And I'd like to hear what some of your experiences were. And I'd like to hand it off to Paul. Paul, you were there with us. I know I spent a lot of time with you in the Arctic Pavilion, but I'm wondering what your thoughts were on this COP in Glasgow.
Yes, well, like you know, there was a lot of hoops to jump through, you know, to satisfy the pandemic requirements of the UK government, and, you know, lots of tests to do, both the PCR test before and after the air travel, and then before coming back to Canada. And then we did, of course, I was quite amazed at how far ahead the Scottish, well, the UK government was in terms of having freely available tests. We call them RAT tests in Canada, rapid antigen tests. And right now the governments in Ontario and Canada are struggling to get these out to people. You know, I'm not sure why they didn't do it weeks and weeks ago. They're just sitting in warehouses. But, you know, these 15-minute tests, you know, which are very important for people. You know, if you get the sniffles or a cold, you can test yourself and, you know, ease your mind in about 15, 20 minutes on, you know, whether you're likely to be positive or negative. And we had to do these each morning at the conference, at our places, at our residences, and then enter them into the National Health Service of the UK, and then we'd have to show the proof to get into the venue. So, you know, that was, you know, a little bit of extra work each morning, but I remember the first day struggling, you know, reading all the instructions very carefully, and, you know, it being a big deal. And by the end, it's just, you just do it. And, you know, and I actually continued doing it when I got home, because I don't know whether it was, I didn't see any regulation saying that I couldn't bring some of these things home with me. So I did. I brought a few back in my luggage, which people are in the neighborhood, or they all know I have some tests, and they come by my house and I give them a test on my front doorstep because they're not really available, you know, yet in Canada. They're supposed to be. But anyway, yeah, so there was a lot of, you know, in terms of the Madrid conference, I think, you know, as a team, we're getting much, you know, we're very comfortable standing in front of crowds and doing the presentations in the press conferences. And I guess the big question to ask ourselves, and also, you know, people watching, is how can we get more traction in terms of more people viewing what we have to say, and maybe, you know, finding audiences that we wouldn't generally have, right? So any of the viewers, you know, please share our videos and share our stuff to try to get, you know, more and more people aware of the great, serious, grave risks that we face from abrupt climate change. It seems that the young people really do get it. I mean, walking to the conference one day, I passed right through, massive crowds of people that were on a climate march that day. And the media ended up saying there was about 100,000 people. I don't know if that number is accurate, but, at least, huge numbers of people. Whereas, when you're in the COP, it's really, one of the questions is, it seems to be kind of divided by people that are so-called observers or non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and the actual policy people and, the people that are in the large negotiation meetings, because it seems it's very, we get the badges to get in, but they don't give us access to a lot of the negotiations. So, in terms of the overall results of the conference, I think we as a team achieved quite a bit. And, as long as the greenhouse gas levels continue to rapidly increase in the atmosphere, CO2 in particular, methane, nitrous oxide, then we're going to continue to get warming. And as long as governments continue to subsidize fossil fuel companies, we're actually, taxpayer money is going to actually ending up subsidizing fossil fuel mining and bringing up the oil and gas and coal and combusting it. And as long as that happens, it seems like everything else we do is just going to naught. Like if you look at the CO2 curve, for example, and then put the years of the COP 0 to COP26, what did we really achieve? What did we attain? Because these levels are still going up. So this is a terrible thing that we need to somehow figure out, how to get the change. And the more and more people that get out and protest, and the more knowledge that we give, and the more climate disasters. I mean, as we were at the COP still in Scotland, the atmospheric rivers were coming into BC and, causing huge flooding and stuff. And then just in the last few weeks, of course, we've had these tornado swarms through about 6 states, and people in Kentucky, especially losing everything. And then just a few days ago, I saw some images of, it's colder there now, and people in Kentucky actually burning debris from their houses that were destroyed in order to stay warm and in order to boil some water to cook. I mean, it's just heart-wrenching. So we're in a huge emergency, and I don't understand why the powers that be, the decision makers, can't actually get their act together and do something. So personally, yeah, the COP was a good experience, and I let off steam myself by heading across the river over to the poker room. I learned how to play poker at the beginning of this year. It was a pandemic thing. I play all kinds of other games, as you probably know, chess, backgammon, Go, bridge, whatever. Never had played poker, and went there. And I'd like to say proudly, one of my big achievements, I came 10th out of 180 people in the poker room. So there you go.
Congratulations on that, Paul. Congratulations. I know I was privy to your gambling ramblings, and it was definitely a nice diversion to hear something other than the climate crisis.
It's where the climate casino terminology, right?
That's right.
Weather wilding, weirding, and weather whiplashing in the climate casino, and it can come. You have bad luck in the climate casino, you lose your house and your place of employment and your whole city, in fact, right? We're all in that climate casino.
Absolutely. And as we said on that panel, the house always wins. And that is, of course, the fossil fuel industry. So yes, agreeing in terms of it being a personal experience is one thing. And then the actuality of what was netted, well, I know there were tremendously high hopes. My hopes is pinned on the next generation. I agree with what you have to say, Paul, and I'm really looking forward to the next COP, where the youth are going to have their voices will be heard loud and strong. And I think that is what we need. They're not going to be cowed by any of us telling them how it's going to be, because they know that they're the ones who are going to have to deal with this. And I know that you, Peter, were just like such a wonderful presence there. It was great having you there, just beaming from the video, sort of like an oracle, right? So I'm wondering what your experience was joining us from afar.
Well, I very reluctantly was not able to travel, and I was really feeling missing the rest of our great team here. So it was wonderful that our producers and technological experts, Charles and Heidi, who of course really make all this happen, right? It was great that they were able to say, well, we can beam you to the conference, Peter. So, oh my gosh, I felt way better about that, be part of the team. So I watched the proceedings from afar. I'm fortunate in so much as I get daily, very comprehensive reports from the Third World Network. I've been involved with them for years and years and years, and they've been involved in this, of course, for years and years and years and years. So I got good feedback about what was happening. Their conclusion, they wrote a document, and the headline for their conclusion was Glasgow Pact, a setback for equity, the poor, and the planet. And they certainly nailed that, because the media has been mixed. You know, some of the media say, well, again, nothing happened, you know, but some of the media say, oh, you know, I mean, this is great, we can still go on, okay. But yeah, nothing happened. But I'm not going to great depth. I do want to say that this was a very unique climate conference. There was nothing much hardly happened before the conference at all. Usually there's 6 months of heavy negotiations leading up to the conference, but that didn't happen. So what happened here was that day one, the UN president of the conference, Alok Sharma, he rushed around all the negotiations, and he put together a proposal. And the proposal actually did look quite good. The big things that I was really impressed was there was a lot of they almost got passion into this conference this time. You know, it was billed as the make and break conference for the climate, which means the make and break conference for our planet and our future, and yes, our young people in particular. At the end of the day, Alok Sharma looked very, very, very sad, and he made it very clear that he hadn't achieved what he'd hoped to achieve, and we go on to do it again in a year in Egypt. So at the opening panel, I'll just give very short quotes, but there was a couple of absolutely tremendous quotes in the panel, which indicated to me how hard the people at the top were trying to make good things happen here. The remarks from the UN Convention Executive Secretary, Patricia Rose Spinoza, at the opening, and she gave a very similar remark on the last day, were really pretty amazing. She said that we have choices to make. We have to recognize that business as usual isn't worth the devastating price that we're paying for our world economy, or we will be investing in our own extinction. We've never heard that at a COP before, so that was bold and accurate. I'm really impressed by her for saying that. She said a very similar thing on the last day. And then, of course, Hossein Lee, who is the chair of the IPCC, at the opening panel, his statement just didn't get picked up. It was the most important statement ever, in which he said that a warming of 1.5 degrees C and 2 degrees C will be exceeded unless there is immediate, rapid, large-scale reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So he said a very similar thing at Madrid, which wasn't picked up at all. None of the media picked it up, and same thing happened here. Although this was a stronger statement, so I got great respect for Hossein Lee for doing that. Now, so a big unique thing then was that on the last day, and of course I was watching this on the link from the COP26. Everybody came in and sat at the head table. Everything had been decided, right? So here we go. But as soon as Alok Sharma started to get his actually he had his microphone on, he was sort of assailed by one negotiator after another, who hung over his shoulder and was whispering him and waving little bits of paper. So this was something extraordinary that has absolutely never been seen in one of these conferences. And it went on and on and on. He wasn't able to stop. He switched off his microphone, and then he goes backwards and forwards to the floor chatting to people, you know. And the final chat that he had with the negotiation from India was the one that got the media attention. And the results of the chats were that at the very last minute, the so-called agreement was actually watered down, which of course the media picked up on. I won't go into that, but it sort of rendered it something which was possibly small progress. It rendered it sort of useless again. So that was very, very sad. One final thing, I was able to be introduced by my good friend Charles here from Kim Stanley Robinson, who is a science fiction writer. And I watched an amazing lecture that he gave the day after he came back from COP. It's absolutely amazing. I'll put the link out. Suffice to say that he definitely confirmed. He was given a red card. He was allowed to go into the observations, which was also unique. And he was able to confirm all the nitpicking that goes on in the negotiations. But also he was able to confirm my concern for many, many, many years, which is the agreement has to be agreed 100% by everybody. Every line. They negotiate commas and full stops and question marks. So it really was amazing to hear. He gave a great lecture. I'll put it around. It's an amazing lecture.
Thank you so much for that. That would be great if we can put that in the comments. I know people would want to see that. It's kind of spooky to think that, you know, all of these nitty, you know, gritty little details like commas have to be 100% agreed upon. I mean, here we are, you know, as Al Gore and Charles likes to say, walking through the apocalypse, and we have these people arguing about an Oxford comma. It's just really crazy. It's absurd. But also interesting is that we were all at the COP, and one thing that we had said prior to starting this recording is that, Peter, you were with us, but from afar, and it seemed like you really had your eye on what was going, you know, you had your ear to the ground, so to speak. And we often relied on you to let us know what was going on. So that was really interesting as well. Sometimes when you're there running around, taking care of filming or cameras or this type of thing, you do sort of miss out on what's happening. So that was great to have your input. And of course, as you mentioned, Peter, we have our incredible production team, Charles and Heidi. And it is so true. We would have not have made it if it weren't for them. And we wouldn't have been able to do what we did were it not for them. And so it's, you know, we are really happy to have you come out from behind the camera, you two. And it would be great to hear how your experience was.
The Wizards of Oz, right?
Definitely.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go back, and there was definitely a lot of chaos in planning for this, our involvement in this COP. I do have to go back at COP25, there was chaos, but that was more that they switched the host city from Santiago to Madrid 1 month before COP. So that was some scramble. But when I look back at that, you know, it was a bit of a, you know, that was fairly easy to deal with compared to what we had to deal with here with all the uncertainty, as you mentioned, Regina. And first of all, we didn't know if it was going to be a virtual COP for most of the year. Then, oh, is it going to be a hybrid COP? Are we ever going to be able to go? And then around July, it kind of became fairly obvious that more than likely we'd be able to go. And that's when, you know, as the designated contact for the International Society for International Economics, a big contribution on my part was submitting names for potential delegation. And we worked very closely with the Facing Future team and also with the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation and Scientists One in Europe. So I helped Scientists One in Europe with their process of assigning badges. And I worked very closely with Facing Future to assign badges to team members and guests. And also that work involves making sure people have received their confirmation letters from the UN, and also in this past COP, we also had to make sure people submitted their code of conduct for COVID-19 protocols. And then there was all the information on what tests are required. Some people didn't know, do we need PCR tests? Do we need just the rapid test? All that confusion. And then what forms, and the UK passenger locator form, and helping Paul do his form when we were in line at the airport. Otherwise he wouldn't have gotten on the plane. And then making sure, like we had made arrangements to have our day 2 tests when we arrived in Glasgow. And then all the chaos and, we wanted to return the boxes, the test kits in person, and then the place was closed and we had to go back the next day, right? And find the box to return the kits. And then we had to find out about we need a test to come back to Canada. So, we had to come back and we had to book PCR tests, but we had a hard time getting an appointment because of the payment method. And finally we got an appointment. Anyway, so there was all of this going on, and then, there was all the communication with the guests because there were changes in the schedule for the NGO press conference room. So we had to let the guests know and make sure everybody knew at what time we had to be in the press conference room. And the accommodations, booking accommodations, and making sure people had, not just for us, but guests. I helped some of the guests find accommodations. And there was all of that, making sure people got there. And then when we were there, my work involved, I was helping with the media advisories, and I was communicating with the guests, regarding changes in the schedule. And I was, what else was I doing? There was some last minute requests for badges, or some people couldn't make it. So we had to transfer badges from one person to another. And it was just basically making sure things would run as smoothly as they possibly could, given, what we were dealing with. And, there was some stress because of COVID. But all in all, I'm very happy I attended, and we also had opportunity to do some sightseeing in Scotland, which was really great. And I'm very grateful that Paul took on the job of driving on the left-hand side of the road and taking us to some of the sites, and that was quite enjoyable. And I do look forward to the next COP, even though I already know there's going to be some form of chaos.
That's great. Well, thank you, Heidi. Wow, yeah, no, you've done a heck of a lot. I don't think any of us would have gone to the COP had it not been for your diligent planning.
It's my fault.
And another thing I want to say, I don't think any of us would have gone to the COP this year or in 2019 in Madrid had it not been for Stuart Scott.
Yes,
and of
exactly.
course,
yeah.
we did pay our respects to Stuart Scott at the COP. We had actually three events to honor Stuart Scott. And of course, Heidi and I were at them all, and we got to see that. And of course, I would advise anybody who is interested in why Stuart chose to use the COP as a venue to tell people about the climate emergency we're in is very well documented in the interview that Peter Carter did with him back earlier this year. And I will include the link to that interview in the description of this video. So I would advise you, because Stuart does talk a little bit about his activist strategy in that. So we're very thankful to Stuart, of course, and his footprint, is on our group, Climate Emergency Forum. It's on, of course, Facing Future, which is the primary group that took over, that Stuart started. And also Climate Scientists Warning Europe as well is really linked to Stuart Scott. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. I mean, in terms of my job, I was more the technical person on the website. And obviously I'm the video editor. I'm the person that makes sure that everything flows properly and smoothly in the video presentations that we post on our channel here. And of course, I do work on the website and also Facing Futures website too. So I do those two jobs. And in terms of the COP, as far as an experience goes for us personally, I mean, it's really consists of several elements. I mean, there's the travel element, there's the work element, because we're going there to work. And there's the vacation element. We want to try to take advantage of the fact that we got to travel somewhere in the world. So, you know, we plan these things with those three things in mind. And so one of the ways we do that is we arrive early to kind of get acclimated to the environment so that we're comfortable using the local transit, which was very excellent in Glasgow, as it was in Madrid. Madrid was amazing transit there, but Glasgow was good too. And also too, to get to see some of the local sites and sounds. Glasgow is a beautiful city. I was very impressed with Glasgow, and there was plenty, like most of us here are vegetarian or vegan even, but there's plenty of opportunity, places to go to eat in Glasgow, like if you're a vegetarian or a vegan. So that was very good as well. And, you know, the other thing about the COP is it's a team building opportunity because, you know, right now we're getting to see each other in two dimensions. That Regina had brought that concept up, I think, that we're going to go from 3D back to 2D. We're in 2D now, but when we were there, we were 3D. We got to see each other, and it's kind of like a little team building, a little reunion to reinforce and those relationships. So very good that way. So, and it's also a great networking opportunity because you meet so many like-minded people at this event who are just as concerned or more concerned than you are about this whole climate emergency that we find ourselves in. So it's quite a worthwhile experience if you can get to a COP, if you can go there and see it. But of course, as Regina mentions, you know, when we're at the COP, really, I mean, we're so caught up in our work and everything we're doing that really we don't have a good inkling as to what's going on. And for that, we're very thankful for the fact that Peter is on our team and was watching things happen in the negotiations and helping to inform us about that. So that was incredible. Now, Peter also mentions this fellow, Kim Stanley Robinson, and I found out about him. I was going over to the local Best Buy to buy an external hard drive to help in my archiving of all our video projects at the Climate Emergency Forum. And on the way there, I heard on CBC Radio 1 an interview on the Ideas program of CBC with Kim Stanley Robinson. And it was an amazing interview hosted by Nala Ayed of the CBC. So I'm going to include that link as well as the one that Peter mentioned in the description of the video. And also too, last night, as it so happens, I got an opportunity to sample Kim Stanley Robinson's latest book. Whoa, and let me tell you, that's quite a read. I mean, it's not very uplifting from the point of view of the scenarios that he points, being one of the scenarios I'll mention briefly is like 20 million people perishing in a heat wave in India. Now, this hasn't happened. It's a kind of a fictitious scenario, but when you understand the state we're in and the risks that we face, it's a plausible scenario. So it is very sobering to read this book. If you have a chance, I recommend you check out that book. It's a great experience. I mean, it was very, as Heidi said, very hectic in terms of having to make sure we all jump through the hoops properly and quite stressful from that point of view. But other than that, it's definitely I mean, obviously in hindsight, it's a worthwhile experience.
I'd just like to add a couple of links maybe to include is the first one is, Peter is a bit too modest to have mentioned it, but he's been attending a scientific conference virtually all week, the American Geophysical Union, and he actually gave 3 presentations to the conference, and I'm sure there's some links to those. And the other thing I'd like to mention is a must-see movie, which is coming out it's going to be out on Netflix around Christmas. Leonardo DiCaprio is in it. It's called Don't Look Up. And it's about a comet coming to the Earth and the politics of, how people react, etc. And it's mostly about the climate emergency and the denialism and the crazy politics that is going on. So Don't Look Up. Luckily, it was at a local theater, so I saw it before it actually comes out on Netflix. But I would highly recommend it, and maybe Charles can put a link to that as well. Highly recommended.
I also want to mention that Paul gave a talk recently to the Club of Rome.
It's the Canadian Meteorological Association, and if you Google CACOR, Canadian Club of Rome, CACOR, all of the past speakers there's links to their talks. So I gave a talk on that and about the COP, sort of some of my technical presentations, etc. at the COP.
So you can see, our dear audience, that we have quite a talented team here. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with you all, and I'm really, really honored to be a part of this team. It's been a really rich and fulfilling part of my life, and it has really helped me deal with the grief that is endemic to any insight regarding climate change and the anthropogenic catastrophe in which we are living. So, I think for those of you who are watching, if you're finding it very difficult to deal with crisis after crisis, I would also encourage you to find some people with whom you can meet and talk and discuss solutions, maybe, whatever they may be in your certain circumstance. But yeah, I enjoyed sharing. This with all of you, and I enjoyed hearing all of your experiences as well. And so with that, perhaps we'll bring an end to another climate emergency forum. And you, audience, thank you for getting this backstage pass to hear about what it was like for us. We enjoyed sharing our experience with you, and we would love it if you haven't subscribed yet. Don't wait, don't procrastinate. All you gotta do is hit that little button, subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out, as they certainly will continue to come out, because we just never seem to have an ending of these crazy weather weirding stories, do we? We just don't. Share this video with a friend, and we look forward to seeing y'all the next time.
Okay, thank you.